Hello YouTube. I thought today I would share a few press photographers' tips and tricks, some of them dirty tricks. I was a press photographer back in the 1980s and 1990s, working for a proper newspaper, proper full-time staff photographer. And these are some of the tips and tricks that we used to use. The first tip I would suggest was we always used to keep our camera ready to shoot at all times. That meant, these are the days of film, that meant we would have a film in the camera, 400 ISO film. The camera would be set to about 2/50th of a second at f8 with something like a 28mm or a 35mm lens on the camera. And the lens would be pre-focused, again, manual cameras, manual focus. The lens would be set to something like about 15 or 20 foot. That meant we could literally pick the camera up, press the button and get a shot. Pretty much anything within reasonable distance would be in focus, and the exposure would be near enough for us to be able to print it in the darkroom. This tip is a very handy tip. This has got me a front page on at least one occasion that I can think of. And again, other friends of mine have had the same thing. You know, we used to carry the camera on the seat of the car next to us, which is not a great idea if it's your own camera, because obviously if you have to stop a bit quick, it goes thud into the footwell of the car, and well, that could be an expensive mistake. But we weren't paying for the cameras. We didn't. Actually, I don't remember anybody ever breaking one like that, but I'm sure somebody probably has. So that was the first tip and trick. Again, we were working with film cameras, so that was another tip, was to always keep the camera ready to go. So we would always put a fresh film in. As soon as you took a film out, you reloaded another film in the camera, wound the frame on, ready to go. So you literally just had to press that button and you had a shot. Today's digital cameras with autofocus and all the automatic modes program and all these things make it a lot easier than it was back in my day. But it's still a handy thing to have. Some of the other tips and tricks were what I suppose would fall into the dirty tricks department. And I'm not really hold with these, but the first thing I was told when I became a press photographer was always carry a child's shoe and a teddy bear in the car. And the reason for this was if a child was killed in an accident, you would then, when you arrive at the scene, usually got the police have closed the road off and stuff like that, you would then put the teddy bear or the child's shoe in the road with the police car in the background, and there's your emotive photograph. Now, personally, I don't hold with that. You know, that's playing on people's emotions. The family are going to see that, and that's a really naughty, dirty trick to do. So, not one I ever did, but I mean, I've seen it done. The same with the teddy bear. They would use the teddy bear if a child was killed and people were putting flowers outside the house. They would stick a teddy bear up there to make it look like it was the child's toy. You see that today still. You'll often see that now when children are killed. You'll often see teddy bears, sometimes put there by members of the public, sometimes maybe by the press, who knows. Another trick which I suppose falls into the dirty tricks category was we used to carry radios that would pick up the police radios. You can't do it these days, it's all encrypted. But back then you could use a thing called a scanner which would pick up the police radio, and that meant you would get tips and tricks on, you know, like, oh, there's been an accident on so-and-so road, and we could just nip over there then and get some pictures. But in practice, we pretty much never needed that, because we had people in the fire service and people in the police who would ring us and tell us when something juicy was going on. We used to have one Bobby who used to call into the office every morning for coffee when he was on duty. One of the fire chiefs in our area was a keen photographer, and he would actually take pictures and pop in and give me the roll of film, and I would give him a handful of rolls of film back. That was the deal. He got half a dozen rolls of film for one. I wasn't paying for the film, and that way he got something out of it, and we got, you know, exclusive pictures that we perhaps couldn't have got even if we got to the scene, because he could get down onto the railway lines or whatever it might be, and things that we couldn't do safely. Although back in those days a yellow jacket would get you into all sorts of places you wouldn't get without one. Another tip or trick, press photographers do a thing called doorstepping, which means that you often sit outside courts for hours and hours at a time waiting for the defendant to come out of a court case to get a picture of them coming out of court. and that's basically what doorstepping is. Sometimes you'll do it outside people's houses. You might see it on the news. You'll see them all sitting outside some politician's house waiting for him to come out after he's made some gaffe or blunder, or some dirty little secrets come out, which happens quite a lot with politicians, doesn't it? But one of the tricks was, if you had a defendant in a case who was involved in a legal case somewhere, maybe an assault or a murder or something like that, what you would do, and they were out on bail, one of the tips was that the photographers would stake out the house, but then they would either ring up something like a taxi to go to the house, or back in those days a coal lorry, or occasionally they would ring the police and say, oh, there's been a big fight at John Smith's house, and of course the police would rush over there, and you've then got John Smith on the doorstep with the police. Needless to say, these tips and tricks are illegal. It is a criminal offence to do that. It's called wasting police time. So, these are things that I did not do. I don't agree with these sorts of things. You don't need to do these, you really don't. It's much easier to just get a reporter to go with you, and the reporter knocks on the door and try to get him out that way. But this sort of stuff is underhand, and it's criminal in a lot of cases. As I say, even using the radios technically is a criminal offence. Listening into the police radio wasn't an offence, I don't think, back then. But acting on the information you received was an offence. And of course, obviously, if you responded to an incident, then you're acting on the information. Another thing we would do sometimes was follow a police car or a fire engine to an incident. This worked okay with the local police, because the local police and the local fire brigade kind of got to know us, so they would ignore the fact that we're following them through the traffic and what have you. But obviously, if you go to another town and do that, the local police might not stop you at the time, but as soon as you arrive, they're going to say, what the hell were you doing following us through the traffic at 50 miles an hour or whatever it was, and you're going to get nicked. So again, not one to do. And those are the only ones, those are the main ones that come to mind off the top of my head for the moment. So there you are, some press photographers, little tips and tricks. Okay, they're a bit old and a bit out of date maybe, but well, there you go. Thanks for watching, YouTubers.